Part 10. The 7 Principles of Character Building. There are 7 special principles governing the cultivation and development of the positive character qualities. Each of these general principles is embodied in a particular psychological method based upon strictly scientific foundations. The practice and application of these methods have been found by experiment and actual employment to be highly efficient in the direction of the cultivation and development of the character qualities which reason and experience have determined to be positive, i.e., to tend to make one stronger, better, and more efficient. There is nothing fanciful or visionary in these methods. They are based upon cold, scientific facts, carefully tested and subjected to trial and experiment, and may be verified by anyone who will faithfully put them into practice and use. The 7 principles of character building, above referred to, are as follows: The principle of idealization. 2. The principle of visualization. 3. The principle of mental declaration, or affirmation. 4. The principle of nourishing with suggestive ideas. V. The principle of rehearsing in imagination. 5. The principle of directing the physical expression. 7. The principle of establishing the habitual manifestation. You are now asked to consider in fuller detail each of the 7 principles of character building, with a statement of the facts upon which it is based, and the general method whereby it may be effectively applied. Idealization. Idealization is the act or process of giving an ideal form or character to the character quality under consideration of combining its full meaning and content in a unitary idea embodying the basic conception involved in the thought or term designating it. The principle of idealization is employed not only that a full, intelligent conception of the quality may be had, but also that there may be created an ideal mold or pattern, design or framework, in or around which the substance of the quality may arrange and build itself into the perfect form and shape to be expressed in objective manifestation. In order to build up a desired trait or quality of character, it is necessary first to create in the mind a strong and efficient idea of that trait or quality. All things in nature are built around an ideal form. The ideal form of the oak tree is in the acorn, and the growth of the tree proceeds according to the pattern of the ideal form. All the creative work of man proceeds from the ideal to the real, from the mental idea to the material reality. Halleck says, the Brooklyn Bridge first existed in the mind before the structure became an objective reality. The projectors had first to plan what they intended to do, then they had to put these plans on paper in the forms of drawings, the mind going before the pencil, and telling the fingers where to put the next line. Only after the mental object was complete, was matter slowly poured into this mental mold. Only then did that wonderful bridge, connecting 2 great cities, become a reality. The same is true of every step in material progress, from the invention of a sewing machine to that of the telephone. In the battle of life, those succeed best who can form definite ideas of what they are going to do, before they start to do it. Others get into trouble, and often are forced to retrace their steps. In the process of idealization, in the work of character building, you must first of all acquire a full, comprehensive and complete idea of the nature of the character quality which you wish to develop, for that is the mental pattern upon which you are to fashion and shape the growth of that quality, the mold into which you are to pour the mental substance out of which character qualities are built. Unless you have a full and complete pattern or mold, the product will be incomplete and imperfect. You will find that your ideas concerning most character qualities are very hazy, indefinite and imperfect. If you build or pattern upon these, you will obtain results far from complete and perfect. You will do well to begin by referring to a dictionary, then exercising your general recollection and thought concerning the report furnished you by that reference work. For instance, you wish to develop courage within yourself, because you find yourself lacking in that quality. Stop a moment, and see how little you know concerning courage. You know it only in a general way. Reference to the dictionary brings the report that courage is that quality of mind which enables one to encounter danger and difficulties with firmness, or without fear. The synonyms given for courage are as follows: heroism, bravery, intrepidity, valor, valiantness, gallantry, daring, firmness, hardihood, stoutness of heart, boldness, dauntlessness, resolution. If you will proceed further in your dictionary search, you may run down the meaning of each of these synonyms, writing down the definition and explanation of each. By so doing, you will have built up a wonderfully strong concept or conception of courage. You will know it from top to bottom, and from all sides and points of view. You will find that for the first time in your life you really know what courage means. If you wish to proceed further, you may refer to some standard reference work in which quotations from eminent writers, poets, and speakers are given, indexed under their appropriate headings. Under the heading of courage, you will find many strong quotations in which the word or idea of courage is used as the central thought. You will find yourself filled with a new and inspired realization of the inner meaning of courage. You will have courage idealized, courage apotheosized, courage deified. Having done this, you should use your recollection and powers of association in order to bring before your mind the numerous instances and examples of courageous action and behavior of which you have read or heard. You should recall the individuals noted in history for their courageous behavior in face of danger and difficulties. You should recall the individuals in private life who have manifested acts showing the possession of the quality of courage. In short, you should build up a strong and complete mental picture of courage, using your basic definition or conception as its central point. The same course should be pursued by you in the case of any particular character quality which you may wish to develop in yourself. The principle is universal, and is applicable in all cases to all individuals. Do not pass this by as fanciful or unimportant detail. It is very practical and most important, as you will discover if you will try to put on paper your conception of any character quality without having followed the course above outlined. Your ignorance concerning any of these qualities is unsuspected by you, until you make the discovery in the way above mentioned. Having made the discovery, you will get busy in this way if you purpose trying to develop a character quality, for unless you know what you are trying to build, you cannot expect to build it very well. First, know thoroughly what you intend to seek and obtain, then, bend every effort toward obtaining it. The idealization comes first, the realization follows. 2. Visualization. The principle of visualization is employed for the purpose of creating a clear mental picture of the character quality deemed desirable and worthy of development because of its positive nature. This mental picture must show the quality in actual manifestation and expression on your part. Your imagination is called into effect in picturing you as already possessing the quality in question, and as efficiently manifesting it in action. Thus is set into operation that psychological law which creates mental paths over which the will afterwards tends to travel easily and instinctively. Visualization is the act of picturing a mental image in memory or imagination. Another definition is the creation of a mental image or picture representing a physical form or activity. In the special usage of this term in the new psychology, it means forming mental pictures or images of oneself as possessing a desired mental state, and as acting in accordance therewith. As we have stated, the purpose of the practice of visualization in the process of character building is that of building and establishing mental paths over which the will may and will travel easily in future performances. Just as one's feet naturally and instinctively tread in the path which other feet have made for them across a field, through a forest, or along a stream, so does the will tend to tread the path which has been established for it either by the habit of continued and repeated action, or by the habit of idealistic visualization or mental picturing, which we are now considering. In applying the principle of visualization, you should picture yourself mentally as already being that which you desire actually to be, and as acting in accordance with the possession of such qualities of character. You should visualize yourself as in possession of the positive qualities you wish to acquire, but under no circumstances should you allow yourself to indulge in the practice of visualizing yourself in the possession of negative qualities. This, because in either and each case you will be building mental paths of character over which the will may find it very easy to travel in future manifestations of character. In the process of visualization, as herein described, the imagination is called into play, and is pressed into active service. There was a time in which the imagination was regarded as being concerned only with fanciful picturing having no relation to real accomplishment. Today, on the contrary, the imagination is seen to be a most important factor in the creative work of man along all lines of expression. Everything that man has created, he first created in his imagination, the physical creation being merely the reproduction of the mental image. The better and clearer the mental picture of anything you wish to accomplish, the better will be your chance of accomplishing it. all else being equal. Constructive imagination is the secret of the attainment of the inventor, and of the success of all persons, in any walk of life, who improve upon older methods and who extend the limits of man's achievements. Therefore, do not dismiss the subject of the principle of visualization as being mere imagination. Instead, learn to employ the principle earnestly and in good faith, for by so doing you set into operation one of nature's great hidden forces, one of her finer forces. By creating the right kind of mental pictures of that which you wish to be and to do, you are erecting the mental model which your will may employ in its future work of character building. It will try to copy faithfully the model you give it, so be careful to give it the right kind of model. Build carefully on the plane of the ideal, for your work will be reproduced on the plane of objective reality. Hang the right kind of pictures in your mental gallery, for they will be used as models by the silent artists working on the subconscious planes of your being. 3. Mental declaration, or affirmation. The principle of mental declaration, or affirmation, is employed for the purpose of bringing into operation the psychological law which tends to set and fix in the character those traits, qualities and tendencies which are verbally declared, asserted and affirmed with conviction and confidence. In modern psychology, this principle is frequently referred to under the term affirmation, or autosuggestion. Affirmation means the act of affirming or positively asserting and declaring. In the special meaning of the term as employed in modern psychology, the term affirmation means practically that which is known and indicated by the term autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is a suggestion made by the individual to himself, and when persistently practiced it takes on the full power and effect of that which psychologists know as suggestion. The term suggestion, in this usage, is the process of communicating an idea to the subconscious mind, in an unobtrusive manner, carrying conviction. A suggestion is not an argument, or the presentation of proof. On the contrary, it is rather a positive, confident statement made in the tones and spirit of conviction. Suggestion proceeds upon the psychological theory that the mind of man is largely subconscious, and the subconscious mentality is highly amenable to suggestion. It would be departing from the special field of psychology sought to be covered in this book were we here to enter upon a detailed consideration of the respective subjects of subconscious mind, suggestion, etc., interesting as such subjects may be. Instead, we will assume that you are acquainted in at least a general way with those leading facts concerning such subjects, and shall treat the subject of mental declaration, affirmation or autosuggestion with that understanding. Those who wish to acquaint themselves more fully with the subject of the subconscious mind are referred to the volume of the present series devoted to that special subject of subconscious power. Mental declaration, affirmation or autosuggestion is very simple in its application. It consists merely of saying to yourself, positively, emphatically, earnestly and persistently, I am fearless, or I am self-controlled, or I am truthful, etc., etc. The I am assertion preceding the statement of the possession of the particular character quality sought to be developed and cultivated, and brought into the field of your mental activity. You should never make the affirmation or declaration in the form of a denial, as for instance, I am not afraid, I am not untruthful, etc. This, because in such a denial you are really suggesting the negative term to the subconscious mentality, and thus bringing it into the field of attention, thereby strengthening it instead of weakening it as you desire to do. Mental declarations, affirmations and autosuggestions should be positive, and never should be expressed in negative terms. The power of mental declaration, affirmation or autosuggestion is augmented greatly by an accompanying acting out of the character quality as described later in our explanation of the direction of physical expression, and by the practice of visualization, as previously described, and also by the practice of the principle rehearsing in imagination, as later explained. The combination of 1. Direction of the physical expression, 3. Visualization, and 4. Mental rehearsal, furnishes an ideal method of cultivating and developing any desired character qualities. In declaring, affirming or autosuggesting the desired character qualities, be careful not to fall into a parrot-like repetition of the words. There is no special virtue in the words themselves. The entire virtue consists of the lively meaning of the words which the mind absorbs. Your declarations or affirmations must be alive, full of energy and animation, not dead, meaningless statements of words repeated without a vivid consciousness of their meaning. Mental declaration, or affirmation, is not by any means a mumbo-jumbo process of repeating mysterious words constituting a charm. It is not a superstitious magic rite. Instead, it is a purely scientific process, based upon definite psychological law, and is dearly explainable in psychological or physiological terms. Remember, always, that there is a reason for this process of SZI to myself, SZI, and that this reason is a valid, scientific one, based upon efficient observation, experimentation and demonstration. 4. Nourishing with suggestive ideas. The principle of nourishing with suggestive ideas is employed for the purpose of bringing into operation and effect that psychological law under the operation of which mental qualities are fed and nourished by means of the presentation of suggestive ideas, or starved by the withholding of such ideas from them. This psychological law, simply stated, is as follows: feed your positive qualities with appropriate suggestive ideas, starve your negative qualities by withholding appropriate suggestive ideas. In considering the application of this principle, you should take note of the fact that the element in the character qualities which is to be fed, or starved by giving or withholding suggestive ideas, as the case may be, is the feeling or emotional element of such qualities. The feeling or emotional element is present in every character quality, and, in fact, is the element which supplies the motive power of the manifestation of the quality itself. This being perceived, it follows that an understanding of the nature of emotion must be had in order that you may be able to grasp the principle involved in the case now before you for consideration. Emotion is made up of two elements, two streams combining to form a mighty river. These two elements are, 1. Simple feeling, and, 2. Representative ideas. Emotion is technically feeling combined with idea. A leading psychologist has compared the river of emotion to the lower Mississippi River, which is composed of the waters of 1. The Missouri River, representing representative ideas, and 2. The upper Mississippi, representing simple feelings. The two streams combining, the lower Mississippi River, representing completed emotion, is formed, and thenceforth flows toward the Gulf of Will much broader and deeper than before the junction. The waters of both the Missouri and the upper Mississippi are always present in every part of the lower Mississippi, and the elements of feeling and idea are always present in every emotional state even when emotion flows into the Gulf of Will. The above statement, and the accompanying illustrative figure, will give you the secret of the application of the principle now before us for consideration. If you withhold the stream of suggestive ideas, the river of emotion will consist merely of simple feeling, never rising to the power, never displaying the depth, never extending to the width of the true river of emotion. But, on the other hand, if we let flow into the stream of simple feeling a copious and abundant stream of suggestive ideas, then will the river of emotion be given increased power, depth and width. Completed emotion never comes into being except in response to definite suggestive ideas. These ideas may arise from the direct perception and observation of some suggestive object, which object awakens either the memory of direct experiences or else of inherited racia experience, and thus sets the imagination to work. Any idea, whether derived from direct observation, or else arising from memory, which suggests the satisfaction of emotional feeling, or any picture of the imagination which is likewise suggestive of similar results, will tend to awaken or to kindle emotion. This, because such ideas combine with the inherited or acquired elements of simple feeling, and, fusing with these, create emotion, or become emotion itself. The imagination supplies us with some of the strongest suggestive ideas inspiring emotion. Halliwell says, "Those ideas which give us pictures of a concrete act of injustice, of the doing of a noble deed, or of actual suffering, seldom fail to arouse emotion. If a man intends to get a contribution for the sick poor, let him not speak in general terms of the inconvenience of sickness, the pains of poverty. One vivid picture of a forlorn room where a feeble mother is watching a sick child for which she is unable to procure proper food, will be infinitely more effective. Any idea which suggests gratification of desire, any idea which vividly pictures something affecting the welfare of the self or of others, is apt to be followed by emotion." Stating the case generally, the rapidity of the rise of an internally inhibited emotion will be due to the amount of pleasure or pain, immediate, or remote, to ourselves or to others in whom we are interested, which the idea suggests. From the above, you will see that it follows logically that the more that your feeling is supplied with appropriate, suggestive ideas and mental images, the greater will be the power, depth and width of the emotion aroused, and conversely, that the more that your feelings are deprived of such suggestive ideas and mental pictures, the weaker and the less effective will be the resulting emotion. Hence the general rule: feed your positives, and starve your negatives. Keep your mind well filled with the suggestive ideas and mental pictures which logically suggest the positive character qualities, and keep it as free as possible from the suggestive ideas and mental pictures which suggest the negative character qualities. In following this course, you will be proceeding scientifically with your work of character building. Visualize yourself as manifesting the positive qualities, as expressing your feeling and desire for their objects, as gratifying your desire and craving for such objects, and you will be setting into operation a powerful law of mental activity in the direction of the attainment of the positive qualities which your reason dictates should be cultivated and developed. See yourself as you wish to be, i.e., in possession of the positive qualities, and manifesting freely, efficiently and effectively such positive qualities. Emotions are hungry creatures. Feed well those which you desire shall thrive, and starve into submission those which you are determined to restrain, restrict and inhibit. Remember, always, that suggestive ideas constitute the natural food of emotion, and the imagination is the great department store of suggestive ideas. Rehearsing in imagination. The principle of rehearsing in imagination is employed for the purpose of acting out in imagination those actions which you desire to render habitual, and which result naturally from the manifestation of the character qualities which you are seeking to develop, thus bringing into operation the psychological law which operates in the direction of causing ideals to become real, and in creating mental patterns of action which will be reproduced in actual manifestation. Just as the actor who wishes to become proficient in the representation of his part must practice, rehearse, and act out in private the part which he wishes to play, so must you practice, rehearse, and act out in imagination the parts which you desire to play when you have fully developed and cultivated the positive qualities to which you are applying the methods of character building. Careful and extended experience and experiments in the psychological laboratories have demonstrated the correctness of the above stated principle of character building. It has been found that when the individual experimented upon will earnestly, diligently and faithfully carry out the instructions to rehearse in imagination the actions which will naturally result from the possession of the developed character qualities in question, then he will rapidly develop those qualities which are necessary to cause his ideals to become real. It would seem that nature feels the demand upon it for the development of the qualities in question, just as it feels the demand of the growing plant for certain elements of growth, and thereupon responds to that demand by supplying that which is needed. When you are engaged in the work of developing and cultivating a desired positive character quality, you should avail yourself of the materials gathered by you in the processes of idealization and visualization, respectively, thus forming a clear conception and mental picture of just how you would act if you were really in possession of that positive character quality fully developed and in a state of normal activity. Get this idea and picture well fixed in your mind, as perfect in detail as is possible to you, then proceed to act out the part in imagination. Go about it just as if you were actually learning a part to be played on the stage, and for which you would be handsomely rewarded if you succeeded in playing the part successfully. Go about it seriously, earnestly and in good faith, and with persistent determination. Learn well the part, then play it out well in your imaginative rehearsals. Imagine yourself in all sorts of positions in which you will be called upon to exercise the positive quality in question. Invent circumstances, conditions and events in which you must play this part in order to be successful. Then mentally picture yourself as successfully playing the part, going through the motions, displaying the necessary strength, power and fortitude, saying and doing the right things, and, finally, as meeting with success in the matter. Never, under any circumstances, should you indulge in a rehearsal of the manifestation of negative qualities and steadfastly refuse to accept such roles even in imagination, for, otherwise, you will make it too easy for you to actually play such parts in real life. Rehearse only those parts which you really desire to play, and cut out the other parts. There is no magic or uncanny mystery about the workings of this principle. It proceeds strictly in accordance with scientific psychological law. By rehearsing and acting out these parts in imagination, You set in operation certain mental forces which tend to bring to the surface of your consciousness the mental powers which are latent there, and which are a part of your heredity, the mental powers associated with the manifestation of the positive qualities which you are acting out. Moreover, at the same time, you are acquiring the mental habit of acting in this particular way, and thus establishing new paths over which the will may easily travel. Or, to put it another way, you are exercising that set of brain cells which have to do with the manifestation of the positive quality in question and are thereby causing these cells to develop by use and exercise according to natural law. Aside from all explanations and theories, though there are plenty of good ones to be had, the principal fact concerning this principle is this: it works at an actual effect, and will produce the desired effect. You do your part and the psychological law of this principle will do its part in return. By directing the physical expression, the principle of directing the physical expression is employed for the purpose of setting into operation the psychological law which relates and correlates the inner mental state with its outer physical expression, and which causes each of these elements to react upon the other, thereby establishing the full correlation. Just as this law causes thoughts and feelings to take form in physical action, so does it cause physical action to arouse a corresponding and associated set of mental thoughts and feelings. The first above mentioned result is a matter of common knowledge. The latter, though equally well established, is practically unknown to the average person. The correlation and coordination of mental states and physical expression is universal and elemental. Particularly marked is this correlation in the case of emotional feeling and muscular action. The lower animals manifest it in their characteristic physical expressions of emotional states: the tossing of the mane, the showing of the teeth, the unsheathing of the claws, the distended fur or hair of the body, the dropped tail, the wagging tail. All these are typical examples of the operation of the principle. The human infant gives vigorous physical expression to its pleasurable and disagreeable emotional feelings. The adult being also manifests marked physical expression of his inner emotional states, as for instance, his smile, his scowl or frown, his clenched fists, his look of amazement or perplexity, the changing expression of his eyes, his general bodily attitude. The skilled pantomimist or moving a picture actor is able to express by mere physical gesture, expression and posture, the entire range of human emotions. Psychologists are now quite generally agreed that if the body remains entirely passive, then the emotional state can scarcely be said to exist. They hold that the specific muscular action accompanying an emotion is so truly an essential part of the emotion that it cannot be divorced from the latter. They cite as evidence this fact that when the features are deliberately fixed in the facial expression of one emotion, it is impossible to call up into conscious action a contrary emotion. Furthermore, they assert that by restricting and restraining the physical expression of a strong emotion, one usually is able to inhibit the further growth of that emotional state. Likewise, that by refusing to express the physical form of an emotion, the inner flame of the emotional state flickers and finally dies out entirely. There is discovered to exist a peculiar action and reaction between the inner emotional state and its outer physical expression. Each acts upon the other, and in turn each experiences the reaction from the other. This process of action and reaction proceeds until the climax of the emotional state is reached, when it dies down gradually in the same way. Each inner excitement produces an outer excitement, the latter reacting upon the inner states, and thus intensifying them, and so on until the climax is reached. In anger, for instance, you will find the following stages manifested. First, there will appear the rising inner excitement, which is closely followed by the physical expression, i.e., the clenched fists, the compressed lips, the scowl, the labored breathing, the increased heartbeat, etc. These physical actions will then react upon the inner flame, causing it to burn more brightly and more fiercely. The heat of this increased inner flame will then warm up an increased degree of physical expression, and so the action and reaction continue until the person is roused to fierce passion and rage. From these facts, the psychologists have deduced certain methods of controlling and directing the emotional states. These methods are of two general classes, as follows: 1. Methods of inhibiting negative emotions by means of refusing physical expression to them, and 2. Methods of cultivating and developing positive emotions by means of inducing their physical expression. Let us now consider each of these in turn. 1. inhibiting negative emotions. The discovery that emotional states may be restrained, restricted and inhibited, or at least prevented from rising to their completed form, by means of a deliberate refusal to allow them to manifest in physical expression, is of the greatest practical importance to those individuals who seek to cultivate and develop the positive elements of character and to restrain and curb its negative elements. It places in your hands the key whereby you may at will lock the door of any particular emotion, and thus prevent the exit of its tenant. By means of this discovery, many who were formerly slaves of their emotional states have become the masters of this part of their mental being. For instance, many quick-tempered men have discovered that they are able to repress the development of a rising feeling of anger simply by holding their voices down to a quiet level tone and to a calm utterance, by refusing to allow their brows to contract in a frown, and by preventing their fists from clenching and their breathing to become labored. By refusing to permit the muscular contraction, they have aborted the rising passion. Many so-called cold-blooded persons owe their immunity to hasty emotional states to the simple practice of muscular restraint and control, i.e., to the habit of restricting and restraining the physical expression of the threatening disadvantageous emotional feeling. There thus being no physical action to react upon the emotional state, the latter has no fuel to keep alive its flame, and it soon dies out. The physical expression and muscular contraction, which is the outer phase of the emotional feeling, should be thought of by you as the oil which poured on the fire causes it to burn more fiercely. If you want the flame of inner emotion to burn fiercely, pour on the oil in goodly quantity. If, on the contrary, you wish the fire to die out quickly, refuse to supply it with fuel. Carry in mind this figurative illustration so that you will have it at hand when you need it most. In applying this method, you have but to note the instinctive impulse toward muscular action which accompanies the first dawn of the rising emotional state, and then resolutely and determinedly to employ the will in the direction of refusing further physical expression. At first this may be difficult, but you will find that once you have acquired the knack, it will be easy. In fact, the very withdrawal of the attention from the exciting outside object arousing the emotion, and placing it instead upon the physical movements, will tend to quiet the emotional storm. Each and every emotional state has its own particular forms of physical expression, and when you are on the lookout for these you will detect the preliminary symptoms at once. Then you must assert yourself and give the order, "Stop just where you are. I refuse expression to you. You shall not pass the barrier of my will." Stick to this command, back it up with your will, and you will have mastered the emotion. The Orientals practice a method of emotional mastery by means of the control of the rhythmic rate of breathing, which method is really but one form or phase of the general method above indicated. Some of these Oriental methods have been in use for over 2,000 years. Perhaps even much longer. Leaving out the fanciful theories and technical terms, the underlying principles of these methods may be stated as follows. 1. Every emotional state has its appropriate trait or rhythm of breathing. 2. If one will refuse to allow the breathing process to proceed according to this appropriate trait or rhythm, then the associated emotional state cannot rise to its completed stage. As an illustration of the above stated principle, you have but to think of yourself as becoming angry. If, when you find this emotional state manifesting within you, you will determinedly refuse to allow yourself to breathe according to the anger rate or rhythm, and instead will keep your breathing rate or rhythm down to that of the calm, well-poised, self-controlled mental state, then you will have aborted the rising emotion of anger. Again, if you refuse to manifest the anger breath in the fear breath, you will have conquered anger and fear, the twin devils of the emotional world according to the Oriental philosophies. You will do well to consider carefully this method, and practice and apply it. Another method of preventing the rise of negative emotions is based upon the same general principle, that principle, however, being here applied in a different manner. This new method is one but little known to the Western psychologists, but it has been taught and practiced by the Buddhists for many centuries. It may be stated as follows. By concentrating the attention upon the several physical states, muscular movements, expressions, gestures and postures, correlated with an inner emotional state, so that you mentally analyze that emotional state into its associated physical elements of expression, you will cause the spirit or soul of the emotion to take flight, as if in disgust, leaving nothing but the shell of its physical elements for further observation and experiment. Example: If you feel yourself growing angry, or jealous, or worried, for instance, you should begin to think about the several forms or elements of physical expression accompanying the emotional state. Analyze the physical expression into its ultimate elements, proceeding in a cold-blooded scientific spirit. When you are through with this task, you will find yourself contemplating merely the lifeless shell of the departed emotional state, from which the soul has fled in disgust and despair. When you are able to see in the feeling of anger merely the physical elements, the clenched fists, the frown, the scowl, the compressed lips, the flushed face, the labored breathing, the increased heartbeat, you will have left but very little of the original internal feeling of anger. You do not need to wait until the negative emotion actually manifests itself. In order to perform this analysis, it may be performed in imagination, at other times, by counterfeiting the feeling and thus observing the instinctive physical actions accompanying it. Act it out, and you will find the lattia and a plaster beneath the thing which has seemed like solid masonry to you. A warning is necessary here, however. We advise you to conduct the above experiment only upon the negative emotions, those emotions which you wish to inhibit, restrain, restrict and master. Do not try it upon the positive emotions, upon those you wish to develop, cultivate and strengthen. The reason is obvious. You are here striving merely for mastery and self-control. You are not a candidate for asceticism or anchoritism. Remember, you do not wish to kill out all emotional feeling and expression, by any means, for many emotional states are positive and contribute to the task of making you stronger, better, and more efficient. These you wish to cultivate and develop. It is only the negative emotions that you wish to restrict, restrain and inhibit. Maintain the golden mean, and remember the adage, nothing too much. You should strive only to kill out the weeds in the garden of character. You should cultivate the many beautiful plants and flowers of emotion which are to be found there. Do not pull up by the roots the plants of the positive emotion in order to see what makes them grow. Do not pick to pieces the flowers of the positive emotions in order to discover the elusive flower in itself. Remain human with the positive human emotions. Did not try to become an emotionless being with all head and no heart. Mastery of emotion is one thing, asceticism and renunciation of emotion is another and a far different thing. Keep in the middle of the road, and avoid the two dangerous extremes on either side. 2. Developing positive emotions. The methods just described as being effective in inhibiting the negative emotions, if their action and direction be reversed, will prove equally efficacious in the direction of developing and cultivating the positive emotions. The old adage, "It's a poor rule that won't work both ways," is found to apply in this case. This great psychological law will work equally well in either direction, thus furnishing another illustration of the axiom of physics, and of metaphysics as well, that action and reaction are equal in power, though in an opposite direction. Interesting and important as is the application of the principle which we have just asked you to consider, equally interesting and important is the converse application of that principle. You are now asked to consider such application of the principle, the reverse action of the rule. Psychologists have discovered that if you will deliberately and positively assume the physical expression of any particular emotional state, you will find yourself gradually experiencing the inner emotional feeling correlated to that physical action. Thus, if you sit in a moping posture, sighing and speaking in a melancholy tone, you will soon experience a feeling of depression and sadness. Reversing the attitude and expression, i.e., sitting properly with shoulders thrown back, smiling and speaking in a cheerful tone, in short, acting like a cheerful person, you will find yourself really feeling cheerful. Your depression will have flown away, and you will soon feel bright, cheerful and happy, as every normal person should feel. The psychologists furnish us with many illustrations of this phase of the general principle involved. The following selected cases will serve as illustrations of the typical instances cited by leading technical writers on the subject. A German professor assures us that when one walks for a little time, assuming the mincing air and step of a silly schoolgirl, he will begin to feel as frivolous and as giddy as does the girl whom he is counterfeiting. Actors, we are reminded, frequently experience the inner feelings of the character whose outer actions they are representing on the stage. Likewise, if we cast the eyes upward, assuming the reverential attitude of the pictured saints, the Madonna, or the girl in the well-known picture of the soul's awakening, we will be inspired with a feeling of awe, and the emotion of reverence, devotion and mystic longing. Counterfeiting the expression of the Mona Lisa will give us the key to the inner feeling expressing itself in the inscrutable smile which the artist has so subtly conveyed to us in the painting. Again, closing our eyes, and directing our glances sidewise in a suspicious, crafty glance, continued for some little time, we will feel rising within us the crafty, suspicious, cunning, designing feeling of the fox and his human counterparts. Or, if we will continue to glance half a downward, and a little to one side, we will soon begin to experience the feelings of the coquettish woman, quite vain and self-satisfied, and rather inclined to a little flirtation. Professor William James has assured us that whistling to keep up courage is no mere figure of speech, and that, if we wish to conquer undesirable emotional tendencies in ourselves, we must assiduously, and in the first instance cold-bloodedly, go through the outward movements of those contrary dispositions which we prefer to cultivate. Here, then, is the essence of the method. If you wish to develop and cultivate a positive emotional state or character quality, or to inhibit a negative one by means of developing and strengthening its correlated positive, you may do so by deliberately acting out the physical expression of that positive emotion, just as the actor would act out that part on the stage. By giving full expression to the physical actions associated with an inner emotional state, you feed the inner flame, and by first earnestly counterfeiting that physical expression, you may actually kindle that inner flame. Therefore, in cultivating an emotional state, you should, 1. Throw as much earnestness as possible into its physical expression when you are manifesting it, and you should also, 2. Seek to induce the feeling by deliberately inducing its physical expression. You may easily ascertain the appropriate physical expressions of an emotional feeling, if you do not already know them, by throwing yourself into the part in imagination, and letting yourself act it out. Cast aside the cultivated and acquired repression of your emotional feelings, at least on such occasions, and let instinct and nature show you how that particular feeling and emotion expresses itself in physical form and motion. A little private practice along these lines will surprise you by the revelation of unsuspected depths of feeling and expression possible to you. You will be surprised to discover how good an actor you are when you act before the mirror. You will not need a chart of the complete physical expression of any or all of the emotional states. Instinct has supplied you with an inner chart, with all the details worked out, though you have hidden that chart under the accumulated habits of many generations of conventional restraint, in all probability, particularly if you are an Anglo-Saxon. If you are of the Latin races, or have the blood of such races in the mixture flowing through your veins, you will find the instinctive expression much nearer to the surface. But, no matter how deeply buried it may be, it exists surely in everyone, for nature has placed it there in her processes of racial psychic inheritance. You will make interesting discoveries concerning your emotional nature if you practice this method. You will find that you have the whole menagerie within yourself. You will hear the muffled roarings of the animals in the recesses of your nature, but you will find yourself the master of the show, by reason of your grasp of the fundamental principles of their nature and activities, and by the knowledge of the basic facts of your own being. In applying this principle in the direction of developing and cultivating the positive emotions, you must reverse in every particular the direction of the principle as we have explained it to you in our consideration of the methods designed for the restraint, restriction and inhibition of the negative emotions. Instead of shutting off the supply of fuel, here you must pour oil on the fire of emotion by encouraging, expressing, and even actually counterfeiting and acting out the physical expression. Likewise, just as when in the work of repressing the negative emotions you refuse to allow your breathing to take on the rate and rhythm of the negative emotion, so here, in developing the positive emotions, you must first deliberately induce, assume, and produce the desired breathing rate or rhythm. Breathe as you wish to feel, is the Oriental adage applying in this case. Furthermore, you may here even reverse the method of analyzing into its physical elements the negative emotion, which you have been taught to apply in cases in which you wish to neutralize the effect of the latter. In this reversed action, or converse method, instead of analyzing the negative element into its physical elements, you proceed to synthesize, i.e., combine, put together, these physical elements so as to create an inner emotional state. Instead of driving out the soul of the emotion by dissecting its body, You here build up an appropriate body into which the soul of the emotion may enter. This analysis, and the synthesis, as the case may be, is performed mentally, of course. In the synthesis you form a mental picture of the coordinated and combined physical elements of expression, visualizing these as animated by the soul or spirit of the positive emotion. In this way you awaken the sleeping spirit of the positive emotion, which then proceeds to live, and act, and breathe through its physical form. We ask that you do not dismiss as fanciful and impractical these methods of controlling the physical expression of emotion. While they may be new to you, and while they may be different from anything you have previously thought or learned concerning this matter, nevertheless they are the most practical and efficient methods discovered by modern psychology, or, perhaps we should say, rediscovered, for these methods have long been known to the Orientals. 7. Establishing habitual manifestation. The principle of establishing the habitual manifestation of the positive character qualities is employed for the purpose of building up a line of least resistance, and establishing a second nature, along which and according to which course the will tend to travel in future actions. This principle is based upon the well-established psychological law that the expression of the emotions and the manifestation of the will proceed along the line of least resistance, the latter being the line of established habit, and upon the fact that in establishing a new set of habit action there is created a second nature, of even greater power than that of the original nature of the individual. Habit is the tendency of the mind, feelings, emotion, and will to move along the line of least resistance established by previous actions of the same or similar nature. When one performs with difficulty a voluntary act several times, the repetitions of that act become steadily easier, more involuntary, more instinctive, more habitual. Here follows the technical statement of psychology concerning the nature and operation of habit. An acquired habit is an established and traveled pathway of discharge of nervous energy, over which subsequent currents ever after tend to travel or escape into action. The two laws governing such habitual action are as follows. 1. All actions tend to recur and to be manifested more easily after each performance. 2. Actions, at first voluntary, by frequent repetition tend to become involuntary, and are performed principally by the subconscious will. Here the mind is seen to work and perform just as does material substance, such as, for instance, the piece of paper or cloth which after being once folded thereafter tends to fold more or less easily along the lines of the original crease. This principle being perceived, it logically follows that if you are desirous of cultivating and developing the positive character qualities, you will do well to start to acquire the habit of actually expressing them. The more often you actually manifest such character qualities, the more easily, instinctively, and automatically will you express them subsequently. You must create a wide, clear mental path over which your will may travel in future manifestation. Such a path may be created by firmly establishing the habit of actually manifesting the desired positive character qualities. Here follow the classical, well-established psychological rules of habit, adapted to the particular task before you. 1. Acquire momentum at the start. When you undertake the task of cultivating a positive character quality either for its own sake or for the purpose of inhibiting its correlated negative quality, give the positive quality a good running start, so that it will be launched with a strong and vigorous initiative. Be in earnest, and put enthusiasm and vigor into your work of character building. 2. Beware of slipping at the start, when you undertake the development of a positive character quality. This, because such a failure discourages the will, and renders easier any subsequent slips or stumbles. Your positive character quality must be given the habit of success from the very start. This will put new life, vigor, and confidence into it. Beware of early discouragements, before the habit has been established and the tendency set. 3. Express promptly in action your positive qualities, when they present themselves in consciousness to you. Do not allow procrastination or delayed expression to deaden your will to action in such cases. Let the positive qualities express themselves in action at the first possible opportunity. This gives the inner spirit of the feeling a body to inhabit and causes it to take on an objective form. 4. Exercise the positive quality in actual work, this as early and as often as possible. Character qualities, like muscles, grow and develop by use and exercise. If you cannot find an opportunity to exercise the quality in actual work, then do the next best thing and give it a good rehearsal, or acting out, both of inner feeling and a physical expression. Keep the faculty fit and in good condition by trotting it around the track every once in a while. Character qualities, also like muscles, tend to atrophy, stiffen and weaken, if not used and exercised. Beware of allowing your positive character qualities to become muscle-bound. The master formula of attainment in your work of character building, in your task of building up a positive individuality, as in any other form of mental work, you will be aided by employing the principles of the master formula of attainment, which is frequently referred to in the instruction contained in the series of books of which the present volume is a part. The master formula of attainment is composed of the following several elements, viz. 1. Definite ideals, 2. Insistent desire, 3. Confident expectation, 4. Persistent determination, 5. Balanced compensation. Its principles may be expressed in popular form as follows: you may have anything you want, provided that you 1. Know exactly what you want, 2. Want it hard enough, 3. Confidently expect to obtain it, 4. Persistently determined to obtain it, and 5. Are willing to pay the price of its attainment. We suggest that you apply the principles of the master formula in your work of building up a strong positive character. Poise and power. In this instruction we have sought to lead you to concentrate upon, and to exercise, express, and manifest the positive norm of the various classes of character qualities which are present within you in at least some form of development and cultivation, and also to lead you to inhibit and starve out the deficiency and negatives of those positive qualities, and to transform the excess and negatives into their appropriate positive norms by the addition and blending of the positive elements which serve to neutralize the perversion and excess constituting the negative form of the positive qualities. The two negatives, i.e., the deficiency negative and the excess negative, respectively, represent the extremes of any particular class of character qualities. Situated exactly at the central point between these two poles or extremes, is to be found the positive norm of the quality in question. Many find it difficult to attain and maintain the state of the positive norm. They find that the pendulum of expression and manifestation tends to swing from one extreme to the other, the swing being wide in some cases, and narrow in others. Human nature tends to run to extremes. Becoming tired and disgusted with one extreme of a character quality, it seeks to escape from it, and in so doing tends to swing equally far in the other direction, and thus reaches the other extreme. The reformed libertine often becomes an ascetic. The ascetic who breaks loose tends to rival his libertine cousin. Few are able to master the extremes, and to secure the poise and power which comes only to him who has found and held that place and position represented by the positive norm. That place and position must be found and held by all who wish to attain mastery. Not only in physics, but in the realm of psychology as well, are the law of polarity, the principle of the opposites, and the law of rhythm found to manifest their presence and power. The mental or the physical pendulum swings as far in one direction as in the other. Action at one extreme tends to produce reaction to the opposite extreme. The rule is, action and reaction are equal though in an opposite direction. From the perception of this great fact of nature and of life, the ancients deduce numerous adages and aphorisms, as for instance, too much is as bad as not enough, nothing too much a virtue carried to excess may become a vice, seek ever the golden mean. The golden mean is always found represented by the positive norm, which abides at the central point between the two negative extremes, which escapes the too much as well as the a not enough, and which is always the just right concerning the character quality in question. The truly wise seek to attain and maintain this golden mean, this positive norm. They refuse to be mastered by either negative extreme. They employ the two extremes as weights on the balancing a pole which they use in traveling over the tightrope of conduct and behavior. They stand erect and refuse to fall to either side. When one weight seems likely to pull them over to its side, they dip the pole in the opposite direction and thus maintain their balance. The individual who has attained mastery has learned the secret of balance. He has seen the disturbances and inharmony manifested by each of the two extremes of any set of character qualities, and he seeks and finds a way out of the trouble. He discovers the place of poise and power at the central point of the golden mean, but only by recognizing and realizing the existence and location of the two extremes is he able to find that central point. If you will observe the great individuals who have attained prominence in any walk of life, and who have achieved success in their own respective fields, you will discover that they not only possess power, but that they also manifest poise and balance. Their power brings to them poise, their poise brings to them power. The well-balanced person is a strong individual, the ill-balanced or unbalanced person is the weak one. Balance is an essential attribute of power. Without it, there is no power. In the heart of the storm of the opposing extremes, there is to be found a secret place, a quiet place, a place of power. This is the real home of the I Am I. He who discovers this place, and who takes up his abode there, may defy the winds of circumstance and the storms of change. He is thrice blessed, thrice wise, thrice strong. The only way to find that place of poise and power is to learn and apply the secret of balance. We have given you here, in a few simple words, the essence of a certain bit of the ancient wisdom. It is as true today as when it was first announced many thousands of years ago by certain wise men who came out of the East, and who pointed out the direction of that place in which the demand for light, more light might be supplied, and from which all light comes. The man of character power, of positive individuality, is he who has discovered the secret of balance, of the positive norm, of the golden mean, and who thereby has attained poise and power, that power which comes from poise, and that poise that comes from power. We conclude this phase of our instruction with the admonition, seek ever to attain and maintain the golden mean.